In this video, I'm going to be going over the top 3 things that are holding you back from becoming the best version of you on your fitness journey, okay? And these are not the surface level shits like, oh, stay consistent. Everyone says that. Everyone and their grandma and their dog says that online, okay? These are more of the niche, nitty-gritty things that are really holding majority of people back, okay? The number one thing, mobility, okay? There's a reason why mobility is not talked about a lot in the bodybuilding space or when it comes to building muscle as a whole, okay? It's because it's not sexy. When I was growing up in the beginning of my fitness journey, no one was talking about why mobility is important. And that really backfired on me today because in the last recent years, I had noticed that was one of my biggest Achilles heel when taking my training to the next level. Okay, so you want to work on mobility from the beginning because it will make the rest of your journey a lot smoother. And I'll get into that, all right? So the main difference, because a lot of people mix up flexibility and mobility, the main difference is this. Flexibility is the way your muscles and connective tissues can lengthen and stretch. When you're more flexible, you can stretch and move through a larger range of motion on a specific joint or body part of your body. Mobility is more of a broader term and it refers to the way you move larger parts of your body or your overall body. Flexibility is a part of mobility, but it also includes joint stability, strength, and coordination and control, okay? Coordination, widely underrated. A lot of people would argue that some professional athletes look better than bodybuilders. A big component and aspect of that is because when they're going to practice so much and they're moving their body in a lot of different ways, and not only that, but they're moving a lot of different body parts at the same time. Let's just say football, for example, you're running to go catch a ball. You have to run and then twist, raise your arms, catch the ball, twist while you're running and make the touchdown, okay? All of this practice sessions built up over time is building a ton of coordinations because you're using so many different muscles at the same time. Coordination is widely underrated. Now, let's just go into some of the main benefits of increasing your mobility. Injury prevention, better range of motion, all right? So when you're in the gym and you get a better range of motion, this will allow you to stretch the muscle more, leading to more muscle fibers being used. So greater range of motion, more muscle being used, okay? More muscle being built, okay? Improved muscle activation, reduced stiffness and pain, enhanced workout performance, faster recovery, long-term joint health, and improved posture. Let's talk about improved posture for a second, and I want to get into overactive versus underactive muscles. We're going to take a sitting example, all right? So for someone who sits all day, they are going to have shortened hip flexors. They're going to have, most likely, rounded shoulders. This leads to overactive hip flexors and chest muscles. What happens? The main way to cure overactive muscles is to stretch them, okay? Because they're so tight, because they're in this shortened position, okay? Underactive muscles are usually on the complete opposite side of whatever is being overactive, okay? So underactive muscles, you need to do the opposite. Instead of stretch them, I do recommend to stretch them, but the main way to cure underactive muscles is to strengthen them. So what's on the other side of your hip flexors? Your glutes. Your glutes become dramatically underactive if you're sitting all day. Also, your back, all right? Mostly your upper back when you're sitting all day, okay? I'm not gonna lie, lower back as well, but I digress, all right? So you're gonna wanna strengthen your upper back and your glutes to fix a lot of the imbalances that come from sitting all day, all right? If you're sitting all day, you might see someone pose like an Instagram girl, all right? So most Instagram models, they like to do this thing where they look like an S, and it's actually a medical condition called anterior pelvic tilt. So next time you see a girl on Instagram pose like that, just comment, hey, you got anterior pelvic tilt, all right? So this is what good posture looks like, all right? Tucked in pelvis, okay? That means you're flexing your glutes, you're flexing your core, all right? You have a stable core holding yourself up, all right? So once again, overactive muscles you want to stretch, underactive muscles you want to strengthen, okay? Moving on to number 2, overstimulation. We are in a very, very fast-paced world nowadays where we just see lights and screens and videos pop up in front of us at a rapid rate and we are dramatically overstimulated, okay? And I want to explain to you the difference between cheap and real dopamine. Cheap dopamine are things that give you instant hits of dopamine, instant hits of gratification on things that you haven't earned, okay? So, alcohol, junk food, gambling, social media, drugs, and Netflix, just an example, all right? These are things that, give you dopamine, but you haven't necessarily earned them. Now, here's the thing that no one talks about. I'm not saying to completely drop all of these your whole life. I had a drink a couple days ago. I watch YouTube on the regular. I look at social media daily, okay? I'm not saying to cut these out of your life completely. I'm telling you to slowly replace cheap dopamine with real dopamine, things that you have to earn, working towards your goals. You see the effects of good sleep 8 hours later. You see the effects of exercise sometimes months later, okay? And this is a more, in-depth list of natural dopamine versus unnatural dopamine. And I'm just gonna take a second to stop here. I'm not gonna go into it too much more. However, I do recommend you reducing the amount of unnatural dopamine you get and increasing the amount of natural dopamine you get. Like I said, I'm not saying you have to cut out TV or you have to cut out shopping, obviously. You got to hit those Black Fridays. But I will say that I want you to take an audit of yourself and see, do I fill my life mostly with this instead of a lot of these? If you do, take this into consideration to incorporate more natural dopamine releases. If you want to be extreme, if you have an addiction to food, go on a fast. I recommend doing some research on that, on how to do it safely. If you're stressed, you need to go do a high exertion exercise. If you're bored, start a project, but a big one, okay? Now, I do have a whole step-by-step guide right here on how to do a dopamine detox. This will absolutely change your life. However, that would take way too long to do in this video. So this link is gonna be in the description of this video, and I want you to click on that and it'll just give you a doc on how to do the dopamine detox, all right? Last but not least, all right, we have being close-minded. Guys, I'll never forget, at this very moment of my life, I was very close-minded on how I worked out because the little results that I had, I was like, oh, these gave me the results. I don't have to listen to anyone. I can just do what I think is best. I didn't want to take suggestions from anyone. I wanted to do things my way. It was my way or the highway. And the only reason that I made it from here to here is because I became more open-minded. I did more research. Right here, I was more focused on the bro science and what I thought worked for me was the best. And when I got to this point, this is after years of research, talking to successful bodybuilders, and really just trying new things. Don't be scared to try new things in the gym because you might look stupid, okay? I will do countless warm-up sets just to make sure I feel the muscle in the right way. I'll tweak my wrist, I'll move my feet, I'll change where my head is looking, Don't be close-minded, okay? Do your research, be open to new ideas and new strategies on lifting. Who knows? Maybe bodybuilding isn't for you. Maybe you want to do CrossFit. But you know what? I'm not here to judge, okay? So don't be close-minded and be open to new ideas. Lastly, the bonus topic. It's the one you've all been waiting for. Genetics, all right? So basically, the thing holding you back the most might just be your genetics, all right? There are so many examples of people being held back by their genetics. And I touched on this in a different video, but sometimes there is not a lot you can do about certain body parts, all right? For instance, calves. It's such a big body part that is attributed to genetics. I'm someone that is directly affected by, suffering from small calves, in my opinion, but it is very genetically based. However, the worst thing that you could do is not try at all and grow and blame it all on genetics. The worst thing you could do is sit back on the sidelines and be like, genetics got the best of me, so I'm not gonna try anymore. No, if you can overcome the genetics and actually make progress, you will be so much better off than if you were to just not try at all and not give a shit about, all right? This goes back to another example. I will never, and no one ever should, make fun of someone that's overweight in the gym, okay? They're working on themselves in the gym, all right? You are way better off trying than you are just giving up, all right? And that wraps up the top 3 things holding you back, the more nitty-gritty version instead of this basic ass online Instagram influencer advice of just being more consistent. All right, so if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.